So let's get into the meditation straight away. Just start things out. So just sit comfortably and let's get going. And so meditation is a opportunity just to relax and just enjoy peace and quiet. And this is such an important part of the instruction, to enjoy what you're doing. And sometimes people do too much meditation. Don't do the meditation, allow the meditation to happen. So just sit back and relax and enjoy what is happening. Just allow the world and your mind to flow. And as you allow them to flow, they tend to calm down by themselves. It's the nature of the mind when you're in a good space, in a good place, surrounded by good people, and you're just letting go, peace tends to arise. So allow the peace to arise. Don't do the meditation. Just enjoy the relaxation instead. and just allow the world to fade away into the background. Remember that the world outside is just endless turmoil, endless problems, endless doing. There's no rest in that world. So leave it behind, let it go, and move in to the peace that you find in this hall. Enjoy that peace. Allow the mind to incline towards it. And as you do so, the path is so easy. Meditation is so relaxing and enjoyable. And whatever happens as you go along, it's okay. if you feel tired, don't ever fight the tiredness, just allow it to be. If you rest the mind, the brightness eventually returns. If you fight it, it is not going to happen. So just kind of enjoy, be at ease, whatever is there, be non-judgmental, be accepting of yourself. You are okay the way you are. You don't really need to change. And as you accept yourself, the problems of the mind tend to fade away. And as if by magic, you come into a space of peace and quiet, gradually, slowly, but it does happen. It is so nice to be able to take a break and to come to a marvelous place like the Buddhist Society here. It's a refuge for people, a refuge from the troubles and things of the world. What a wonderful thing it is that we have places like this. And now we are coming to the end of the meditation. Before we come to the very end, to spend a moment or two just to reflect on your progress or lack of progress, and ask yourself, what are the conditions, what are the ways of using the mind that leads to peace and clarity and stillness, etc. Okay, yeah, so that's the meditation for now, so please sit comfortably here.